that's what makes up what we're doing today. So without further ado, I'll let Mr. Jackson begin.
Thanks. I'll give a bit of a preamble and hopefully cut to the chase. Let me know if I'm not speaking loud enough. I can always speak louder. I have teenage sons. I speak as loud as I need to. So as the chair mentioned at the beginning, I put this in context. Really wanted to say this is something that's part of a governance review overall. However, this is the implementation stage. This is where the rubber's hitting the road in terms of the procedure bylaw. And council, through the governance steering committee and the strategic planning steering committee, etc., have come to the conclusion that this is an important, worthy project and we need to check in on it. And from a staff perspective, it's always good to check in with bylaws, to have routines so that they don't get stale, such as we've mentioned put neighborhood plans recently. It's always good to, even though they're on the shelf, you got to revisit them. So putting that in context, it's a good time to take a look at it. And through the discussions with Elimina, with what I've heard from the community, with the current bylaw and what Elimina put together, I came up with what I thought were the main issues that I've heard the most about. And I've highlighted those in the report, and we can take step by step just to go through those with other ideas on how to accommodate the different opinions that are out there. So when you look at it, the third attachment that has on the left side, the right side, Elimina, there are no staff comments on there for a reason. It's not to go point by point and to say which is better, and I didn't feel that we were at that stage. Staff couldn't go to that step. I needed to get more direction from the committee before going there. And you'll see that there are gaps in both of those, and that will be filled in over time. So hopefully at the end of this, I'll be able to bring something else back that we can go through on a step-by-step basis and see what's appropriate or not. So it's okay, I'll just start with public input. And then following that, we have council and committee of the whole. And then I'd like to jump into the decorum and debate, which is a bit out of order, but I think those three things really tie together. They link. Even though they're separate items, they don't stand apart. They really do work together. So but just committee's pleasure, I'll jump through those. So the public input. There's a different way to do this if council and the committee would like to see that there are dedicated times on an agenda for public comments, whether it's for an agenda item, not on an agenda item, 5 minutes, it's just open mic, so to speak, for the first half hour of every council meeting, then it may change some of the expectations for everybody. And what I mean by that is, because you have a lot of business on your agenda, we have applicants in the audience waiting for their variance to be heard, or rezoning to happen, a master plan that's coming forward or support or rejecting. All those items are on the agenda, and with not knowing where it's going to land, there's, I think, a bit of angst that can be created. So if the first part of every agenda was dedicated to public comment, it may help manage those expectations for everyone. You know that that's going to be the first half hour, maybe more. I just put a half hour in here first. Is call to order would occur, public comments, up to half an hour. What I'm recommending is say 5 minutes across the board. So any delegation, public comment, 5 minutes. Then it's not a question of, well, what is the formula on that? Is it 10 minutes or is it 5, depending on how many? It's just 5 across the board. So after 5 minutes, then the speaker, the chair could either extend it with council's okay, or just ask the speaker to sit down so someone else can come and speak and have the same entitlement. And of course, afterwards, they can always come back to the podium. So just to envision it, every council meeting, that first half hour or so, would be public comment. They would not have to pre-register as a delegation. They would not have to inform staff or council what that topic's going to be. It's just 7 o'clock occurs, and the mayor or acting mayor would just ask for anybody that wishes to speak to an item, come to the podium and have 5 minutes. This also occurs at the beginning, prior to any decisions of council during that meeting. And that's what I was referring to in the recommendation and elsewhere, is just, if council can make a decision, it's usually better to have that information prior to making the decision rather than after. That's the important decision-making part.
Excuse me, Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a question from the chair.
I'm just going to ask, just for clarity, if a person comes and indicates they want to speak, and you don't really care what the subject is, but does it have to be related to agenda items, or can
But what I'm suggesting here is it doesn't matter whether it's on the agenda or not. However, the committee could choose to restrict it. So I'm leaving the option there that that's up to you. But what I'm suggesting is open it right up.
That could create the hypothetical position of the possibility that those waiting for their items to be dealt with would take up all that time themselves, would they not?
Yes. But another part, so if I just continue on how this would work, there would still be a delegation component. So people could pre-register if they're aware there's an agenda item coming up. So once it's either they know before, or once it gets published as draft, they see they want to speak to that item, they could still pre-register. And then when that item comes up on the agenda, they know that they can speak to that item. They don't have to go to the public comment part. They can just, okay, I'll wait, agenda item 8A comes up, I'll be able to speak. Now, if somebody doesn't pre-register as a delegation, or they miss the deadline, well, you don't need to amend the agenda, they can come to the public comment part. And that's where they could speak.
We still have the opportunity as individual councillors to get somebody on the delegation list last minute.
It's always up to council what you want to add to that agenda. So when it comes to any additions to the agenda, absolutely, you could do that. Absolutely. What would be is the corporate officer wouldn't be given that authority to make that change. And it gives them an out. So if someone does read it at the last minute, or they find out, I didn't know that was coming up, I really want to speak, well, that public comment can absorb a lot of that time and a lot of the, hopefully reduce the anxiety that how am I going to be able to let council know what I want to say? Because maybe they're not used to public speaking, maybe they're uncomfortable in that kind of setting. But if they can start right at the beginning, they know they have that time.
But just to make us check, I still have the right to get somebody to speak on an agenda item later on.
Absolutely, it's up to you. Unless, of course, you want to change the procedure by the defense. It's up to you.
Councilor Patrick, just to be clear, it's up to you to bring it to council's attention. It's council's decision at the end of the day. So it's just the same process that we're in now, where you make a motion to add somebody to the agenda and council passes.
We have Councilor Johnson and Councilor McKay, but I would ask, I don't want to muddy the waters here, but Mr. Jackson, are you using Ellie Mina's agenda order on page 16 from his, or are you, because it's got call to order, then it's got invited presentations. Have you changed that?
Well, what I'm suggesting is, yes, it's not pure to what Ellie's put forward.
Yeah.
The idea would be something right at the beginning, even before approval of the agenda is what I'm suggesting, which is a bit I'm breaking fundamentals there. But the reason why is something comes up public comment, at the approval of agenda, you say, that was a good point, I want to add that to the agenda.
And again, we've got 2,000. So line of the line here likes to go like this, right?
Yes.
Okay, where does this fit, how does this work? I can't visualize what your agenda's looking like, and I don't know if this affects anybody else. I would like to have an example of your.
Yeah, and actually
Is it not done, or?
no, it's ready,
Oh.
computer,
Okay.
here's a zip drive. I can,
Well, I mean, I don't know, does anybody else want to? Because I'm having a hard time saying, so where does this fit, and which one's public comment, where's the delegation? And I'm having a hard time visualizing, I was going off of this one.
well, and what I can do is return as well to the next meeting, because I'm trying to find out whether I want to spend my time or you want staff resources to be dedicated to explore this further. And I can return then with that kind of illustration. Because right now, I don't want to spend any time or resources doing something if there's no appetite for it.
Okay, well, we'll just forget to do that.
Mr. Jackson, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that what you're talking about is replacing those two items at the beginning of Ellie's,
Public comment, public delegation.
replace those two with just public, what were you calling it?
Public comment.
So replacing those two, which from a staff perspective seemed a bit confusing, because one had a different time limit than the other, and it just seemed odd. So replace those two with just one agenda item that just public comment is wide open with a 5-minute time restriction. And staff are recommending that it be for half an hour unless council chooses to use the time limit. Other than that, or council has the authority to change that time limit on the fly in the meeting in the event that it's needed.
So, and then where does delegations?
Delegations, if I recall, was still, as they are today, would still be inserted into the agenda item as it comes up.
Right, okay. Okay, so, okay, I'll just leave it. Councilor Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Jackson. I'm a little bit concerned about public comment without knowing the content of the comments. I think we're laying ourselves open for some very serious, the mayor might find himself in a position of having to ask people to reserve the remarks or refrain from making statements that are, I'm thinking about, again, racist comments or something like that. We don't know what they're going to say because they're not pertaining to the agenda, but it's freedom of speech and they can stand up and make it in a public atmosphere. And I think we need to know a little bit about what they want to speak to or about. And if they don't speak to what they have intended or advise us they're going to, then they could be refrained. It could make it very difficult for the chair.
Well, and sorry, if I could just, one of the, how it works now with the question period, for example, there's no pre-registration or anything at the end of the council agendas right now, whereas that question period is if anybody wants to make a comment, come up. So it'd be similar to that, where it'd be unexpected what people are going to come up with. And so what I'm saying is it would be similar to that, and if somebody is behaving inappropriately, it is tough to be here.
Councilor McKay?
Thank you. So this public comment period, was this advised to be introduced by Mr. Mina?
Well, he had, as was pointed out earlier, there was public comment, invited presentations, etc. What I did is I didn't go and purely look at his or another. I took what I heard and fed it into this report.
Okay, so are we aware of any other jurisdictions that are using this process and if it's working or not working, and what their experience has been like?
Yeah, I've spoke to a few municipalities, and it's interesting how they take different routes. So, and it really depends on the topics in the community at that time. Where sometimes it works great, other times it's very challenging because people just keep coming up, and there's this filibuster mentality that happens. But again, other times it works. In some jurisdictions, I think it was Chilliwack, they actually have something in the procedure bylaw where they have public comments and councillor comments in addition to a mayor's report. However, 60 days before an election, that goes away.
I think you have to decide what the goal is to determine whether it's working better. Parksville, for example, recently just moved their delegations to the beginning of the agenda. And I guess you'd have to talk to them whether they believe that that's meeting whatever their goals were to do that.
So the delegation's on every subject matter?
That's on the agenda.
Okay. So then a follow-up to that is it intended to be 30 minutes? Well, that would say 30 minutes would be up to 6 speakers at 5 minutes each, as long as everything was nice and tight. But if we've got 3 speakers and we have all kinds of questions back and forth, then isn't that
And Councilor
you could easily end up using 30 minutes on 3 people.
They also, just to clarify, it's their question period is moved to the meeting. That's what I meant. They don't have delegations probably set up the way we have with every item, but their question period is moved to the meeting.
And Councillor, I know I was thinking about that as well. But what I would thought is the procedure bylaw is really instructing the corporate officer how to build that agenda. And then when it comes to council, in that moment, it's up to you to say, okay, that's not going to fit for this. So if half an hour is set aside, and you're finding while there's a lot of presenters are coming, there's an emerging issue, or there's a lot of energy around something, that's where you put the brakes and say, okay, you know what, we have a lot of people here, we need to defer this variance, this rezoning, these other items to another night so we can hear more public comments. But that's a business decision that has to happen. Or you say, no, we gotta go on with the business, and we're gonna have a special meeting or do something different because there's something that's here. And I think as you go through a half an hour, because even though there's 5 minutes, sometimes people come up and they're quick. They have a minute, 2 minutes, so you may get more in there. But the chair and the council will get a sense, I think, of where it's going and what may be required.
Okay, last one.
Okay, so Alison Hapkirk made a comment when she was here recently. She said, "I've reviewed your meetings and they look very formal." And I tend to disagree. At times they look very formal, and we're very formal about how we address the chair and so on and so forth, and engage as well. But sometimes they look like a town hall meeting at John Bar's gym. Sometimes they're rather raucous. When you talk about the filibuster, there's going to be issues in the community that I think we should be having, and I've said it all along, these separate meetings, these separate town hall meetings.
Please address that. No, I mean, not cut me off in his report, he's addressing that.
If I may, the first three I mentioned, the public input, the committee, council meetings, and the quorum kind of all fit together, and I'll get to that.
Maybe, you might.
Maybe.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I think one of the overriding principles of governance is that council meetings are your meeting. The way ours is set up, it almost looks like you're presiding to the public. The public is supposed to be witnessing governance in action. You're the representative they've elected. They want to see transparency, how you make decisions. You're supposed to debate amongst each other, and the public is watching how you're doing this. And so that's, I think, I agree with Councillor McCann in some respects. The debate has turned into more of an outward debate with staff and the public rather than amongst yourselves about the issues. And I think that's something you should think about, is that the governance model is you are at the table, this is your meeting, having your discussions in the public.
That's why we need to change the shape of the council chambers, looking at each other rather than looking at. But anyway, that's my little bug of proposal.
Chair,
What do you
just
call it?
mention too, I think the proposal to have a half-hour open session at the beginning can act as a bit of a bellwether for council as well. It can give council some indications that greater community engagements are required. And I want to make it clear that the council meetings and the procedure bylaw are not going to be able to adequately address community engagement. It's a setup for failure if you think you can address good community engagement through a council meeting. Community engagement has to happen before it gets to the council meeting. If it's an issue of that magnitude that requires it, it has to happen before it gets to the table with council meetings. So we can't accomplish both in a council meeting. We do have to have a means for council to know or get those indicators that this stuff has to go out through a community engagement process before we make any further decisions.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan.
I would just be repeating what Mr. Howard said, but I would add that I talked to Mark McKay, councillor in Parksville, about the new method, and he was recommending to the RBN at one of our meetings, saying that this is going well for us. So it would give us an opportunity to hear what people are thinking about, and it would be an opportunity to flag certain things that we haven't got enough input on, or the community thinks we don't have enough input on, and we could then move that to its own separate meeting rather than hinder the balance of the business that has to be done that evening.
Okay, we have Mayor Tan, Councilor Pagy, Councilor Anderson. With no objection, I'll have Ms. Ross, who's just dying to see something. Is there any objection?
How could you tell?
Well, she was jumping up and down. Go ahead. You have something to say.
I just, in response to Mr. Howard, I guess it would be well and fine if the citizens knew the agenda more than 3 or 4 days before a council meeting. If we have the agenda a week before, what he's saying makes sense, but we don't. We get them late on a Thursday night, and that's the problem.
Now, okay, thanks for that, and, there's a reason for that, I heard it over and over again, and I can't recall it. I mean, there is a reason for that.
A good reason.
It's, does staff, anybody want to respond to that reason?
Well, Mr. Chair, we could certainly do an earlier cutoff for agenda items from the staff, but it just pushes out the timing of everything. So, for instance, if a business owner is trying to get some sort of approval from council, it may take another additional week, which doesn't sound like much, but for this person, time and money, and so we're trying to move things along as quickly as we can. And staff, to get a report to council, have to have the report done by Wednesday. And then it goes through a review process with senior staff on Wednesday afternoon, and it's printed on the agenda Thursday afternoon. So the only way we could get it out a week earlier would be to have that deadline a week prior, which we can do if that's council's wishes, which is just going to slow, the criticisms of the grinding wheels of bureaucracy will just become more prevalent.
Okay, then, I will allow Mr. Boland to very quickly respond to that.
Very quickly, I've heard this argument over and over. I remember one of the management courses I took at the Manitoba Institute of Management, spent time talking about the fact that it is not your job as a manager to pick up time for people who didn't get their work done in time. If this is important to that businessman and he knows what the rules are, he will get his work in time to not cause this problem for himself. It's not up to council or his staff to pick up for their late behavior.
Thank you. Mayor Tam, you're next.
Yeah, well, I might just make a comment on that, and if I can, and then I've got something else I want to add. But one of the problems is that I think we try to generate agendas as timely as we can, and if we did do it one full week in advance and had it, say, out on Friday or Saturday, then that means that any business that was conducted between Monday and Thursday of the city would not be heard, because the agenda would be out, and so we are able to work within about a 72-hour window fairly easily. The way it's set up now, anything that's accumulated up to Thursday, and there's a cutoff time, can go into the agenda the following Monday. And so when we talk about timely, to me, I would, you eliminate, I guess, the first 4 days of the week then, as far as business goes. Because if something should happen, well, I'm not going to debate with you. No, Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, I'm just going to say that I think we're going to do it in a timely fashion. To push the date back further means that we're going to be dealing with history rather than the future. And I just have a problem trying to get it back. Because everything will be virtually 1 week behind.